Hello, and thanks very much for the time and opportunity to share our technology solutions and a little bit about who we are and what we do. Today we're going to be showcasing the EH&S, which is environmental health and safety aspects of ARCHIBUS. I have with me Tiffany Lamb, an application engineer here at Horizant, who's going to step us through the product. But first I'm going to take you on a little bit of an overview of ARCHIBUS and the suite. EH&S is going to be, will show you how your organization can manage things like incidents, training requirements, and tracking your special equipment and who has what, as well as medical monitoring and employee work restrictions and things like that, just managing that aspect of it. ARCHIBUS is a much larger enterprise system. We're going to be spending our time in the environmental and risk management in the green at the bottom, but you can see that as a comprehensive web-based suite of applications, these have been developed to address all business domains of organizations who are managing their assets, personnel, their buildings, and of course their operational processes. And ARCHIBUS does this through a powerful and integrated, secure, and flexible platform. Each application is designed specifically to address a core function and improve overall efficiencies. You can see the headings of space planning and management include and move management. There's workplace services, so a service portal. There's reservations and fleet management. There's aspects of ARCHIBUS that deal specifically with just asset management and inventory tracking. You've got the real estate portfolio management, controlling leases and tracking and reporting on costs and invoicing, all those kinds of things, capital, strategic financial planning. It's a very large system that offers data, process control, reporting, and oversight. The advantages of an IWMS system will give you performance metrics and analytics, so you're going to be able to see trending reporting on your data. You're going to be able to drill down into each thing and see what's going on inside each metric or KPI, key performance indicators that you set. There's real-time dashboards and transparency and alerts. You're going to the system helps enforce the standards that you set and provides escalation, workflow, and automation and accountability and control. So it provides, you can also do things like providing satisfaction surveys, and but all designed to improve the delivery of services and facilities, makes your job easier, and allow you to support the people that you support and the underlying health of the organization. There's an advantage of mobility and flexible in the platform as well. There's integration with design systems like AutoCAD and Revit. We're well known for our space inventory and performance. There's GIS extensions with Esri and Google Maps and things like that. It's all designed to really visualize your data, your assets, your buildings, and gain control and allow data to be given to who needs it and when. Now, what is ARCHIBUS? Well, for over 35 years, it's been an industry leader in delivering business intelligence. There's over 17,000 organizations across the globe that use it, with a reported 8 million users. It's a world-class IWMS technology and headquartered in Boston, but with over 16,000 business partners, just like Horizant. They've grown over the years with 35 modules designed with flexible deployment models, so it can be on-premise, SaaS, hosted. There's moderate system requirements, and it's trusted for its design and security. At its core, the system really has evolved to suit the clients, and it crosses currencies and units of measure like BOMA standards, and it crosses over time zones. It's multilingual, and it's deployed in over 130 countries worldwide. It is an industry leader, like I said, and basically these are our peers. If you're already an ARCHIBUS user, you likely already know this. If you're not, then there's hundreds of customers here in Canada, across the North America, that are using thousands across North America and beyond. There is a continual evolution of excellence, which is going to give you a number of things. You have an outstanding user experience. You have great operational functionality. You're likely turning off more than when you set up an ARCHIBUS implementation than you're actually going to be adding to it to suit your purposes. There's executive oversight and reporting for the C-suite. There's very strong ERP integration tools which allow you to connect with other systems like PeopleSoft, Active Directory, SAP, and VFA, among other. You can utilize legacy data from systems like other CMMS systems. So you also have the extended reach with mobility, and of course the flexibility and security is really important. I'm not going to go too much into this, but basically the improved efficiencies, giving you the ability to increase your client satisfaction, create operational excellence, and save money and increase your profitability. The reporting is great for planning and oversight, and of course the ability to have real-time accurate data is invaluable to any organization and makes them agile. One of the best things that you can walk away with is knowing that a modular system allows you to start somewhere and then grow it to become all what you need it to be. Horizant, just a minute or two about Horizant. Technology gets you part of the way. It's really business, technology, and people that are going to create an adoption success and really give you the implementation that you will want to get to. Our who we are is we're the largest Canadian-based IWMS industry expert, and we're both in business processes and in the technology. Over 255 years of combined experience, and we really do understand the IWMS experience from the business part of it. We also know how to do the implementations, and we understand what's possible. So we've experienced, trusted, skilled, and client-focused, and you can see some of our clients at the bottom there that have trusted Horizant to do implementations of ARCHIBUS. These are others that are current clients that we work with on ongoing support. Our project methodology is to create a phased implementation for every module, and there's really three factors that go into any project scope. That's like we really take a look at your existing systems, the data, the reporting needs that you need, or the reporting that's required, and your existing process, and we know the software and how it maps, so we can be it's very clear and transparent. And that's really part of the implementation success that Horizant has encountered, and the reason why people will choose us. Another really important thing to the ARCHIBUS system is that there's an interoperability. That's the connections or the integrations that we've talked about. It's a well-trod path that gives you the ability to connect and share information, allowing different systems to remain sole source, but just using the data required to be able to get the full picture. So this will get us to the point now where we're going to actually crack open the system and let you see how ARCHIBUS can help you control and track and on emergency preparedness and environmental health and safety specifically. So Tiffany, thank you.
Thanks for having me here today with everyone for the webinar, Anna. Just going to transfer our controls, and I'm currently on the mobile emulator, so I'm going to start here with ARCHIBUS, but mainly for the preface that the environmental health and safety module allows that tracking of 4 items, the medical monitoring, so those are your checkups, routines, so things you do want to track. Perhaps everyone in a certain department might need to do a bi-yearly fit test, for example, because it requires a lot of physical capability. So things like that you would identify, and you can track that as well. You could also go into assigning and managing employee training. For example, there are refresher courses. Everyone has to take maybe a CPR course that requires the training to be done by certain days, certain times, and specify any kind of requirements, maybe a document sign-off to say that they've completed this training. You can also manage personal protective equipment, so that goes through assignment and also delivery to the individuals and when those things might expire or if they're just a one-time delivery. And ultimately, incident tracking. So incident tracking is a connecting point for all those mentioned above earlier. It's not saying that you can't simply use ARCHIBUS to only manage your employee training or only track your medical monitoring, but it's the best way to showcase what EH&S has to offer. So I'm going to go through this webinar for that use case that a person on a mobile device, a user, for example, can go ahead through the different apps and go into incident reporting to report something they see, possibly alone or with a group of people. So I have just a sample here, but I'm going to create a brand new item that I might have want to report on. So the first thing is we can always pick an employee. So then I can go and search for that employee, or I can choose myself. We'll just go ahead and look for my particular user. But before I do that, I'll cancel that real quick, because what it does is that you might have noticed the form refreshed. So if it's not an employee, you can also specify non-employees, maybe a contractor or a visitor, or even people that might not have any, that they're dropping by to your firm and you don't really have a record of who they are, but you can fill in all their contact information, being where they're coming from, their phone numbers, that sort of thing, if they're not already in your system. So let's just go ahead and pick that employee myself again, and see that this is refreshed. We can specify the time of incident. And again, all these that are optional fields, we don't have to track it, but we will in this case. So mainly only the ones in red, we have to ensure we fill that out. You can pick your own different incident types. So right now I'm in a sample system that already has the incident types, and you can choose what you want to track in your system. So we'll go ahead with the fall, and we will describe the incident. So now we can do your freeform text, and if this is a mobile user, they can do the pieces like dictation or use the keyboard on their device to specify what happened. So incidents, for example, they could be things such as even employees who suffer from ergonomic strains or the laceration, or even if someone dropped a chemical and you know it's going to impact a group of people. So all this data is really controlled in the background, and we can go ahead and submit that. So what would happen after is that we can add additional details. Again, this is up to the user to fill that out, or you can let the safety officer manage that after. So if I was to add incident details, I have choices of picking locations, medical details, and any witnesses and additional documents I want to attach. Let's just start off with the location. So the nice thing is I can fill this all out individually by pulling through the menus and seeing what kind of choices I have for sites and buildings and codes. But I can also do some quick fills. So I could do that based on the employee. For example, or as a reporter, I can pick my location. So let's go ahead and choose that. And it's pre-filled that information. Otherwise, I would pick and drag and fill in that right spot for that information detail. Going back one step, we can go ahead and add any medical details. Again, optional, but these are things you can fill out, whether you need to do an emergency treatment, and any items that you can identify right away being the injury areas. So let's go into our types of injuries. So you again would specify what kind of categories would occur here. Let's say one was laceration, and we can pick our area codes. Again, you can choose the ones that you want to use within the system, but you can see that there are multiple choices that you can have people use. We can also identify whether there were other conditions, for example, death or hospitalization, and we'll just check that out. We can also add additional witnesses that might have been there with me when that happened. This could be done by the user on mobile, or it could be done by the safety officer that will be showcasing their workflow just in a bit. So I can go and narrow down other folks that were there at the scene. And lastly, the documents. Because we'd be using a mobile device, we can grab a photo from our phone and attach the situation. And basically, we'd be submitting this online to the safety officer and route that through. So that was done on the mobile application, but it can also be done within our Web Central app platform. So the focus today is, while ARCHIBUS is a full IWMS suite, our focus is mainly around the environmental and risk management, and we're staying only in this area. But when we go into the environmental health and safety, you do see that you have a series of different out-of-the-box reports that you can use and identify and manage your information. So we'll linger here for a few seconds, but you might notice the idea of things such as background data, that where you would define training types, medical monitoring, you can define different employee standards and different injury and corrective actions. But you can also track things like such as your documentation and your reporting, but basically this is just things that come with the application. So as you manage incidents, training, lost work days, long-term, short-term actions, rescheduled safety events, for example, we can do that here within ARCHIBUS. So what does this all mean? So the best way is now we can just go into the incident console to see how everything ties in together. As a console, I might be in here as a safety officer. So what we have is an ability to add a new record. We can view the records we have on the system. We can also pull up a filter console, so I can do a search against date ranges. Maybe I want to see what I have on a year-to-year basis, or I want to see things that are happening at a certain building. Or if I have different safety officers, I can see who they're responsible for. So again, you can actually route the system to designate if things happen at a certain location, then it's the responsibility of a certain safety officer. So you can set things like that into the system. We'll go and minimize this. But ideally, when you track all these incidents, you want to make sure that these are events that don't repeat. Or if you do have repeatable events, that you know what you did in a similar situation. So that filter is really good for you to narrow down things that might have occurred and find any like situations as well. We'll go into a sample record that we have here. So first off, we get to pull our details. So very similar to that mobile version that we saw, perhaps maybe having a bit more extra areas to fill in for the safety officer. So I could go and correct items that the user might have typed in and as part of my investigation. I can also specify who's the manager and who's the safety person if that's not automatically assigned. We can also specify things like if there's a chemical involved, so that would be pulling from a chemical list that we would manage. Again, the other thing too is we can copy the incident. So this was a group of people that had the same injury. The basic details are the same, but then how these people get treated would be different. So we'll go ahead and put in another person here. And within ARCHIBUS, there is the autofill capability. So if I don't remember what someone's name is exactly, I can look them up, or I can type it partially in and be given suggestions. So someone else might be having the same condition. We can save it, and they might have different responses to it, different medical monitoring and documentation. So what that does is that we have something called a grouped incident code. So that puts people into a group that we can identify for having that same incident. So let's just stay back with our original record because we have some more details there. Mainly we have things such as your location information. We can also associate that with an equipment if that's relevant. Another thing we could do is we can also indicate that on the drawing. So actually, let's just go back into our incident, and that this was someone that was leaning against a door frame and had a cut from it. So if this is important to me, I can actually indicate that on the drawing and mark up where that happened as an incident. Because this is pulling from the space data, this is from the space module, these are the floor plans coming from the CAD or Revit drawings, but allows me to do something called markups. So I can actually pick tools, mark it up, specify where people might be standing, and any text boxes that I would feel helps the safety officer have the information they need. And when I'm happy with it, I can submit that to the incident and submit that. Go ahead and attach that to the incident. We can also look up any medical information. So if it is a very serious injury, as we pick these different items, for example, if they're hospitalized, you'll see that certain areas start appearing and giving us the ability to fill more details in. And we can also fill out the address and that kind of detail as well as who is the doctor. If we do have to specify these kinds of details, such as the death, we can specify the dates as well. Now, you do notice that the system does change based on your selection. Most importantly is that response. So one of the responses for as a safety officer, they might have to identify corrective actions, and that could come in the various forms based out of the root cause investigation. So here we already have our different root cause codes, but you can fill in your own variations in there, being things such as caused by lack of design or administration failure, because you want to make sure people might not have the right equipment, or they need a particular training in order to understand how to prevent themselves having that kind of incident again. You can also specify any kind of short-term or long-term corrective actions. So for some items, they might be very simple as just replacing a certain item within the building to fix the situation. It might have a longer-term impact on the employee or the building itself. If you do have service desk, you can also assign tickets from here. So I can generate a service request, and there's actually one here already, but we'll go ahead and create one real quick. And we can specify what our condition is for repairs. Again, this would be your types of requests. Maybe you do have a request type that is for corrective action, so it goes to a corrective actions team to manage the fix for this incident. We can go, if you can notice here, there is a pre-fill of the data that I filled in here for the incident already. So all this information is coming from the incident report and as to that short-term corrective action. We can go ahead and pick our different problem types. So we'll be going through the concept of the interior door. These would be your types of problems that you would track and identify. And again, because this is going through the workflow of service desk, we would identify that priority and when we expect that work to be taken care of. And we'll go ahead and submit that. So I'll go and close that. And as you can see here, we can have different types of problems associated with that incident. And we get to have visibility on its current status as well as the date it was requested and date it's completed. So if I was to go into this other record, we can see the history that was going on or what has been happening to it as of late. The next thing we can do is assign medical monitoring. You might have a one-off scenario where you just need to inspect the employee for their condition and that's it. You can also have things that are routine. For example, you figured you might want to set up a weekly checkup on them, and until that is done, then that is the conclusion of that incident. So we would have our different medical monitoring codes. I don't have a whole lot of selection here, but these are the things that you would set up in your system, whether it is something that you require it or you know it's going to repeat for a while. So those are all background management items that we can create here. And basically, when we assign them and specify what date it occurs, we'll just go for the one that will reoccur. And that will assign that particular monitoring to that employee for the series. So if you look here, I've added in 2 different monitoring items to that current employee. We can go and add any workplace restrictions. For example, there might be a loss of productivity from your findings, and it could be temporary, it could be permanent, but let's go into this current record. Something, for example, the employee might have to work from home for several days. There could be days lost from doing that. We specify those other properties to it, such as our classifications. Maybe they're away from work, or you have to give them a job transfer. You can also specify dates that it started from and to if it's temporary, and any documentation that you might want to put into the system. To prevent ourselves from repeating these kind of situations, you can also give the employee training. So training itself can also have properties. So some training courses might be a refresher course, or it could be a one-off course. So it happens repetitively for an X amount of occurrences or by a certain end date. The training that is available would be things that we set up, that you would set up, and it could be a general safety course, for example, that it might be a one-off, it might be a refresher. You can assign that and specify what day it would start for that employee and assign. Lastly, as you can see here, we've added a whole bunch of different training courses to this one employee. Lastly, we do have the ability to also add in your personal protective type of equipment, which again, between protective equipment, employee training, or work restrictions, or medical monitoring, that doesn't necessarily have to be stemming from an incident. That you could just simply be someone who's in charge of managing training for your users. And this is just that use case to tie them all together so you see how the application communicates between those items. The equipment can be things such as assigning earmuffs to all department members of a certain construction department, for example. It could be just giving people safety equipment such as safety boots. You can also specify which floor and which building it would get delivered to, or even room code. We have different equipment codes you would track in your system, and they would have properties too, whether they need renewals after a certain amount of time or they expire by a certain time. So we go and pick some of these items here and assign it to that user. We can specify what day we should need to put that in use and which location we should deliver it to. on the main floor, for example, and just assign that to that user. So if there is something that is refreshing after a while, then we can track that there's going to be a constant flow of these new equipment being assigned to the employee as well. The next thing too is we can add different documentation to the system for as it relates to that incident. So for example, now I've got that drawing that I made earlier for the incident. And you can add a multitude of different documents here as it relates to the incident and view it as well. Now we stayed here within the console, and as we admitted, there were views that were only tracking just the training, just the medical monitoring, for example, and we can actually see what is upcoming and due. We also have views that are just for a warehouse team, for example, that they're only in charge of delivering the equipment to the individuals, so they might only need to see a certain part of the system. So it's all similar in views, but it focuses on that same shared sense of the data. And for the safety officer, they want to ensure that government body or that union regulations, those requirements are all met. So the system can generate email notifications, for example, to the safety officers in the building. If a spill of a certain incident occurred, then you want to notify a certain individual, or if the employees get a training course, that they would get an email notification to let them know that will be up and coming. So we're showcasing a subset of reports, and we're not going to be able to showcase everything, but basically in our different reports, we can do things such as narrow down the information based on what we have on year-to-year basis or not, and other criteria such as based on location. But staying within our reporting now, we're going to go into an incident map. So let's go and restrict that information. We can show all, or we can go down and drill down to a particular location. And as you can see here, we do have the ability to fill in more criteria of our search. We can see by number of count on the map that is using our ISRI mapping, and because ARCHIBUS does come with that license to use the ISRI maps. We can click on one of the locations. We can zoom down to it. We can show details. This one in particular didn't have anything related to a room. So I can zoom out. And let's actually just go into one of these here. But basically, if we do have items that are assigned to a particular room, we can see where that's happening as well. In our Selected Locations tab, we can see what kind of incidents have happened within the system as well. So if I clicked on that one record, we can view all the information related to the incident, even look at, again, the witnesses, the work restrictions, the training and medical monitoring that's happened for this particular incident. But what's nice is that we can also generate a formatted accident report. So OSHA is just a standard report, and we have a sample here that generates it into a PDF file. So for your use case is that you could specify that you want your formatted PDF, so the data from ARCHIBUS is filling in this information to this PDF format, and you do have the ability to then print out this report, and ARCHIBUS has ways, whether it's in Excel, whether it's in PowerPoint or a Word document, for you to extract the data as you need. We're now going to showcase an idea of what you can do with the background data real quick. So between the medical monitoring or protective equipment or training, they're very similar in terms of what kind of properties you can set. But basically, you can possibly group some of these together. Maybe I have general safety style courses, and we'll just go pick our safety manager course. We can specify any kind of comments hours to it, especially if you're managing your internal training, then you can compare the scheduled hours versus the amount of time that it actually took for the employees to get their training. Or it could be associated with a vendor, and you can specify whether this is a one-off or a refresher is required. If there might be a related chemical or equipment type, that might be a part of that as well. But what's nice within ARCHIBUS, you can specify the kind of repetitive patterns that might happen for this particular training course. For example, it could happen for every other week. You can say it's only for Tuesdays and Fridays, and it ends after a certain amount of time or by a certain particular end date that is for that particular training session. So again, optional for you to also create these kind of training programs, and you name it by, for example, even by a nomenclature. That might be your 2017 training, that sort of thing. So that way you have things that could potentially expire by a certain time. You can also go in and if you made changes, for example, everyone that was assigned to that training already and you've decided you've got to change it from permanently from Wednesdays to Thursdays instead, you can go and reschedule anyone that is currently in a course of that same nature and rechange their particular schedule. So same behavior happens to things like even your protective equipment. So you can specify it's scheduled to redeliver a new one every 6 months, kind of thing like that. As a safety officer, eventually you'd want to be able to see who hasn't or who has and hasn't completed their assigned items. So for example, let's go into our training. We can use the filter system to narrow down the kind of requirements we need, or we can see that whole list here. So basically we have a set of instructions that explain to us what the color coding means, meaning red meant that they've exceeded that deadline, or yellow that they're really close to that deadline. And this particular deadline is something you configure what that would be for your system. So if I scroll through, we finally have some other items that are in yellow and the rest are upcoming. So the people that didn't take their training, I can go and identify them and have them be rebooked or what's required of them. We'll just quickly showcase how you would assign people to training. So this is kind of the day-to-day operations of that training coordinator, for example, where you would have all that programs already set into the system. So let's go ahead and pick one of the programs we have. Maybe we can have an asbestos training program. And you'd want everyone from a certain department or a certain division to get that training. So let's go and see what we've got here. Maybe we've got a design department. We'll show and see the employees from that particular department. So I can go and pick and check these individuals and assign them to the training. We can pick an initial date for our training and whatever properties that particular training would have. Oh, I picked Sunday, so let's be nice and pick a Monday. And we can assign that to those employees there. If there was already training with that employee, you can see that I do have error messages that pop up, so I don't have to accidentally rebook these people to the same things. So let's go ahead and choose another set of days. And actually, let's go and choose, my bad, we'll go and choose some other employees because these guys are already training, so there's no point having them retrain the same thing again and again. But you can see ARCHIBUS does have error handling capabilities for me to not accidentally redo the same things to the individuals that are in the system. Now, the primary focus today is health and safety, but as you can see here, I picked an asbestos code for training. So ARCHIBUS does have the ability to handle abatement and hazardous materials under the clean building area. So, but we just want you to see that you can have all sorts of different training programs that you would want to manage in the system. There's also the ability to reschedule as well. For example, if that particular date doesn't really work with that group of people, or if someone else has reached out and said they can't take that training for that day, so you can reschedule those as well for the individuals. or a series of people. Ultimately, you'd want to track that they've completed their course. So we can go ahead and narrow down the different training courses that we do have, for example, and see the individuals that are assigned to it. We can upload a document, for example, that they have to sign off saying that they've acknowledged they've completed the training, they understand the content. You can also make any notes to it. And if you are managing your training and you want to compare what you think it takes to train versus what the actuals are, so you can give better judgment for and guidance for when you're actually training employees, you can better schedule their time. So you can fill that in and change the status there. And again, there is error handling. So as you can see here, the training can't be done yet because this is set to happen on the 12th. So after that date, I can start changing that information. We're going to finish by going into a self-service homepage. So this is something from what a day-to-day user would see from their perspective. So they would have the ability to do things such as submit incidents, where we saw that earlier within the mobile emulator. They do have the ability to do that here on Web Central, so the same concept there. They might have things like a welcoming package for them, and they might want to look at the information to their training and medical monitoring that might be assigned to them and any other items. So this particular homepage, as you might notice, might not have a lot of organizational transparency or reporting, but basically this is just meant for a user that might go in the system for a few minutes and they would hop off and continue doing other items throughout their day. So I might be interested in reviewing what kind of incidents I might have had in the system. You could specify in the system whether you want someone to be able to see all their incidents in the past, or you can only showcase recent incidents. So those are things you can set in the system for what kind of visibility a typical user will be able to see. So as a user, I can go in and see my details and have information on what's happened within my incident and what kind of corrective action had taken place. We can go back out there and we can see also any kind of upcoming training for me. So while I could potentially get notifications, I might want to go into the system to investigate more details. So I can look into the kind of training that's happening throughout the time periods. And I can also go into all the see what kind of protective equipment that's put in use for me that might be delivered already, and any upcoming medical monitoring. Now that concludes the demo for the environmental health and safety. So I'll pass the baton back to Diana.
Thanks, Tiffany. That's great. Okay, so we've definitely, Horizon typically helps clients set up their systems with our business analysts and project managers. We help clients define their standards, the requirements, the things that are needed, and the reports that they want to, here we go, I'll just take this back. The kinds of reports that they're going to need, and we also are able to give some insight and oversight on best practices and options that maybe you're not currently considering or have considered, or map the ARCHIBUS system to your process where required. It is a flexible and powerful relational database, as you've seen, and really it is all about your data. The most powerful asset you have is the data to be able to understand how your processes are managed, control them, and share the business intelligence amongst the organization that will, and also provide you with the information for your craftspeople to do the jobs more effectively, your managers, your supervisors, and basically help reach your goals more easily. With EH&S, you're definitely going to be able to see history and trending. You're going to be able to stay within compliance and make sure that your regulations are adhered to and support your initiatives, and also be able to prove that you've taken corrective actions and statuses. It's just an easy way to really track all the things that can happen in the workplace. Now remember, all this data can be sliced and diced in various ways by the different managers to share and use, and it really is geared towards being able to help you make decisions and share information. Horizant gauges our success by the results and success of our clients and the legacy of our partnerships. We strive for a true technology partnership. We enjoy many years of collaboration with clients because as they grow and expand, we provide the software, but also the support, the implementation expertise, and we definitely are an industry recognized leader, and with over 17 years since 2000, in fact, with hundreds of deployments. We also work continuously to educate and promote IWMS, or if you want to call it CAFM or CMMS control. We do this through things like speaking engagements and workshops across North America, and in places like Nexus, ARPIC, with organizations like IFMA and more. Additional scheduled training, we do custom training, self-service video library. All these things are available to our clients and users. We do hot topic webinars like this pretty much every month, and there's a newsletter you can subscribe to. So go to our website if you're interested at www.horizant.ca. We aim to continue to give our clients and the industry in general the ability to manage their mission-critical information and raise the profile of facility data within the enterprise and provide the tools, the expertise, the plan and strategies to really do great things for their organizations and the people that they serve. So you've been listening to Ayana Siadi and Tiffany Lamb. There's others here at Horizant that are standing by to help you if you have additional questions or things that weren't covered. We will invite you to also check out the products page on our website and see what other webinars might be of interest to you. So thanks so much. Enjoy your rest of your day, and thanks for tuning in.